I'm still working on my fifth book in my series. But growing as an author, it was recommended to me because I switched editors as well. So my first three books were edited by somebody else. And then I switched to a different editor for book four, and they did such an amazing job. I thought, I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to add chapters and materials and do a fresh edit on my first book because I've grown as an author and I've learned so much about my writing. I'm a lot more confident now. And there's chapters and voices for characters that I didn't feel that they had their chance to speak. They didn't get their spotlight, so to speak. So I've added their chapters and I've expanded on some concepts and such. And I'm going to be relaunching my first book.
That is amazing. And I have to say, just personally, I'm inspired by that. I just took off in actually publishing any of my work this last year. And
Nice.
the idea of, going back and rewriting, adding chapters had not even occurred to me, that would be
Hmm.
something that I might want to do in the future. But hearing you talk about
And
that
I
makes
mean,
me
if I'm
think,
going,
wow,
yeah. And I mean, if you're going
maybe in
through
a
all
few
that
years I
process,
might do
I'm
that.
also, yeah, exactly, right? I mean, you grow as an author and then you're like, oh man, I wish I'd put this in or I wish I'd put that in. And, it's not that I'm not going to do this again, but, it's just, I felt like there were characters that really needed to have their voice. And if I'm going through all of that effort, I'm going to get a new fancy cover made. And this I've been doing well with my book signings and stuff in Canada through Indigo and Chapters that they would like me to put my books up on so that they can order them across Canada. So if I'm going to go through all that with new ISBN numbers, new edits, new materials, new covers, and then I'm just going to edit. I'm not going to do a relaunch, but I'm going to edit my other two books with this same author because there's same editor because they're doing such a good job, and they will get fancy new covers too, but they won't be a relaunch.
Yeah. And when you say that, it makes sense. There was this book series I wrote. You probably have heard of Confessions of a Shopaholic. I mean, most people know the
Yes.
movie for sure.
Yeah.
Sophie Kinsella, the writer of that, I had gone through and had actually started listening to her books at one point, and I had been confused back then, like why this we have two different versions of this book, but probably she had the similar experience to you where she wrote that first book, put it out there, and it was a great book, but she was like, I bet you I could do that better. I'm imagining that's probably how that all went down. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, so I can see that.
Hmm.
It's funny to hear you say that because I'd never consciously thought about it until you brought this up today.
And I have heard of other authors doing that, just it's not because I've made a mistake because the story is still good. I've just expanded and clarified it.
Yeah,
But once my relaunch happens, it'll go out as a second edition. There, my first edition will no longer be available.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that makes sense too. It also explains why
Hmm.
people have second, third editions and so on. But
Yes.
yeah, that's a fascinating concept, and it kind of gives me hope that if I'm not super happy when I go back and look at something, or where I feel like I've grown to a certain point, it's nice
Yeah.
to know that that's a possibility. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So remind me, because the only thing I specifically remember about your books is that your protagonist is male, which is, usually we tend to write the gender that we are, but you chose to do a
Yes.
different voice where that was concerned. Remind me what your books are about.
So my books are a magic fantasy adventure. There's lots of action. There's some supernatural suspense elements. It's about acceptance and finding out where you belong. So there's our world, our time, coexisting magical realm, but they're separated by a veil. And we can't see across it. We don't have magic, but these creatures from this realm that do can cross into our world, and they have done so in the past and been inspired our fairy tales and mythologies. And then my protagonist is a young man born with the ability to use magic. His name is Callum Walker, and because he has magic, he's able to cross this veil, or rather, he's dragged across this veil. And, so he's learning about this world and all the beings therein. Adventures ensue, but he's trying to figure out, where he belongs, because he is too too magical for our side, but he's too human for this magical realm. So he has to figure out where he belongs. At the same time, he's got to, master his abilities to survive and just basically accept who he is.
Interesting. The creative side of me wants to say, does he create a third realm? Because that would be really cool.
I'm not going to give away anything for future books. You'll have to read and figure it out as we go. I know where the series is going to end. But I'm set on a number between 6 and 9. I'm working on my 5th. I've plotted for my 6th. And it's just a matter of how many books it's going to take to get to the end, but I'm aiming for between 6 and 9.